We're diving into some big news. President Trump just signed an executive order slapping a 25% tariff on foreign-made autos. Now, this is going to shake things up for automakers, for jobs, and maybe even the price of your next ride. But we're going to take a deeper dive into that, because here's the deal. On April 2nd, any vehicles manufactured outside the United States is getting hit with a 25% tariff. Now, this is not just a little tweak. It's a 25% point jump above where the tariffs were before. Now, we're talking about $100 billion in projected revenue in the United States. What's the goal? Well, President Trump wants to bolster American manufacturing, bring jobs back home and production. But the road to get there is going to be a little bumpy for so many big players. Now, I'll break this down on what's going on, but first I want to remind you to like this video and subscribe to our channel to keep up with what's going on in your automotive world. Shares of the big three automakers, General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, dipped after the announcement. General Motors and Stellantis are especially feeling the pressure. Why? Well, 30% of GM's North American production is in Mexico and Canada, and 17% of their vehicles are assembled in other countries. A 25% tariff on imported cars and parts could damage their bottom line, unless they pass the costs on to us, the consumer. That's not good. And General Motors Chief Financial Officer Paul Jacobson said they've been preparing since November, slashing offshore inventory by 30% and working with logistics partners to keep things lean. Smart move, because nobody wants a warehouse full of cars that just got a 25% tariff overnight. That makes them kind of expensive. Then there's Stellantis, with 45% of their U.S. vehicles coming from overseas. Bloomberg estimates these tariffs could wipe out $3 billion of their profits. And their new CEO, John Elkann, even met with President Trump, promising they would shift billions of dollars of production stateside, including reopening a shuttered plant in Illinois, which the UAW likes. But here's the catch. They're also cutting costs like crazy to stay afloat. S&P Global just downgraded Stellantis, warning that price hikes of 6 to 8% might be coming, which could tank U.S. sales by 5 to 7%. And Stellantis promised President Trump they were bringing back jobs plus a $5 billion investment in U.S. manufacturing in their network. They also promised reopening an Illinois manufacturing plant, pledging to increase domestic vehicle production and produce a small truck. Now, we need to keep our eyes open on Stellantis. Personally, I fear the brand may pull Fiat, Alfa Romeo, and Maserati out because of sales. They're soft as it is, and if they got to add that 25% tariff, those brands may disappear from the U.S. marketplace. They can't sell them if the prices increase. Ford is in a slightly better spot with more domestic production, but CEO Jim Farley is still very worried. He's called these tariffs devastating for the industry, and Ford's been stockpiling USMCA compliant parts and rushing engines across the border before the April 2nd deadline. Speaking of USMCA, that's the relationship or the agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Well, there's a small break, because parts that met the trade agreement rules are tariff for free, for now. Until the Commerce Secretary sorts out how to tax non-U.S. content, this could end up costing them a lot of money. And one of the big twists, vehicles from Mexico and Canada get a slight break based on their U.S.-made content. So the effective tariff might be a lot less than 25%, especially across the total cost of the vehicle. Tesla's actually in a pretty sweet spot, but they aren't getting away scot-free, even though with this tariff shakeup impacts all brands. But why would they not be as concerned? Well, they build all the cars they sell in the U.S. right here in California and in Texas. It also sources 60 to 70% of its parts within our country. That means no tariffs on their finished vehicles, giving them a leg up over the competitors in importing cars. Remember, Tesla still owns over 60% of the electric vehicle market, whether you like them or not. And Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk, has not requested any support for his cars from President Trump, and this looks like a big win for him. Maybe by accident, maybe not. Last year, the Model Y and Model 3 were the top-selling electric vehicles in the U.S., and these tariffs could extend their lead by making rivals like Ford's Mustang Mach-E and General Motors' Chevy Equinox EV a lot pricier, because both of them are built in Mexico and not here in the U.S. But it's not actually that simple. Tesla still imports some of its parts, like batteries and electric motors from Canada, Mexico, and even China. And those could face tariffs, bumping up production costs and reducing profit margins. And here's the kicker. If Canada or Mexico retaliate with tariffs on U.S. imports, Tesla's sales in Canada will take a huge hit. Posts on X are already buzzing about Canada targeting Tesla chargers with rebate cuts, which could cost them millions of dollars. Plus, Tesla warned the government that a full-on trade war might hurt their global sales, especially in China, but they do produce vehicles there for that market. That's their second largest market. So they would be winning at home, but worried about their global market shares. Europe's automotive sector condemned President Trump's executive order imposing 25% tariffs on imported cars, as well as many components, but also called for negotiations and expressed cautious optimism that a compromise could be reached. By value, Europe is the biggest exporter to the U.S. Investment bank Jefferies calculated that Europe's automakers in 2023 exported cars worth a total of $59.25 billion to the U.S., far ahead of second-place Canada at $28.1 billion. Europe's car makers already face a shrunken domestic market and new competition from cheaper Chinese vehicles. Any more trouble in the auto industry would weigh on the European economy that did not grow at all in the last year when it comes to car sales. We've also learned as we are recording this that Audi is now talking about definitely moving their production to the U.S. What an interesting move. We're going to see a lot more of this as things come along. But now let's shift to a winner in this tariff game, Hyundai. They've invested $21 billion in Georgia, creating 40,000 jobs and building a plant in Savannah that'll pump out 500,000 cars a year, including 80,000 Ioniq 5 EVs. Plus, they're building a new steel plant in Louisiana. Hyundai's president Jose Munez says this isn't about tariffs or incentives. It's about staying competitive. They'd already planned this quite a while ago. This is not a last-minute move. And get this, their EV sales are second only to Tesla. By making cars here, they're dodging that 25% hit. Very smart move by Hyundai Corporation. With nearly half of all U.S. car sales coming from imports, the hike is expected to hit European automakers hard, especially Germany, whose car exports rely heavily on American buyers. Shares of BMW, Porsche, Volkswagen, and Mercedes-Benz dropped following the announcement. So what's going on here in the United States? Well, analysts say President Trump is playing the long game. It's partially about jobs. Over 617,000 of them coming back. But there are millions of jobs that are affected by all the sub-suppliers to the auto industry. And this is huge, but it's also about renegotiating USMCA trade deal early, not waiting till July of 2026. But Trump's not waiting on this. These tariffs might just be the leverage to pull Canada and Mexico to the table sooner. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says that the tariffs will start Wednesday, April 2nd. But Trump's keeping his options open on that 25% rate. President Trump claims that this will bring in more than $100 billion in new revenue. And this is part of Trump's plan to get rid of income tax and reshape the global economic system. Then we'll have an external revenue rather than an internal revenue. I kind of like that. No taxes? That works for me. I'm sure it does for you too. So let's see how this works and if it works. The worst case scenario is the plan fails and we're right back to where we started from. Best case, Trump succeeds. Income taxes eliminated and the people have a much better quality of life. Let's see if you can pull it off. I'd like to see that happen. Here's where it hits home. Will this mean pricier cars? Maybe. The American Auto Policy Council, led by Governor Matt Blunt, says they're all in on Trump's vision, but begs for policies that don't jack up costs for U.S. buyers. The integration of USMCA, that's Canada and Mexico, well, it's been a benefit to them, but not to us here in the U.S. And we need a big win. And we don't want to see this stall out. We want to bring them back to the table. For now, automakers are scrambling, some shifting production and others stockpiling parts. Tesla, well, they could be a big winner, but they have to stay steady because their parts are also going to spike. While imports from Volkswagen or Stellantis brands, that could lead to sticker shock. We'll be watching that. Cox Automotive stated that if there aren't tariff carve-outs for auto industry imports from Canada and Mexico, the cost of U.S.-made vehicles could increase from about $3,000 to $6,000. And IC cars sees higher prices than that. It's very hard to predict who's going to absorb these prices and who's going to pass them along, or part of that pricing being passed along. We shall see. But don't let a dealer jack up the price on the window sticker. You should be negotiating. There's a ton of inventory out there. And don't let them say, oh, these are tariff prices. That's a bunch of hogwash. Don't pay more than the window sticker, no matter what. And don't forget those loyalty and conquest discounts that could save you thousands of dollars. I think we're going to see some incentives rolling out soon. That'll help dealers sell some of their massive inventories and lower the prices so that you can afford it. I also think we're going to see some lower priced cars, maybe with less options, rolling out to capture the sales that they've lost over the years because they kept jacking up the prices, making cars completely unaffordable, especially with high interest rates, which will soften. But again, no matter what, we need the prices of vehicles to come down and offer some entry-level vehicles that consumers want who don't want all the bells and whistles. Tariffs are shaking up the world. What do you think? Drop your thoughts down below. And if you want more car news, hit that subscribe button. Check out my next video, which will show up right up there. And you can support me by buying me a cup of coffee. The link for that is in the description, plus all the links to our website, social media, my book, and our podcast. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lauren Fix.